Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Wilson, and I am an instructor in the Technical Education Division at Spokane Community College. In this video, I'm going to share um, a basic outline of how I teach students or anyone to start a resume if you've never started one before. In my class, I do require that students create a resume that's editable, so that you can have it. Whatever we create now, you can have for the next decade or so or longer if you need it, and then you can update it as needed. I recommend that students check out office.microsoft.com. There are other websites out there that you could use. What I do advise, though, is if you're dealing with a website that requires you to pay for it, and then they just send you a PDF that's not able to be edited, then it's not really your property. So for example, Indeed.com, and they may have other options as well, but the free option with Indeed requires you to put things into a blank or a series of blanks, answer a series of questions. Indeed then generates the resume, but it's not something that you can take with you and edit and improve and make better later on. It's something that Indeed generated, and you don't have necessarily the rights to take that document and make it your own. So be careful of those types of things or those types of websites. Make sure that anything you create, even if you start from scratch, just a blank paper, and you create the categories you want to have, that's fine as well. But make sure that whatever you have is your own. Okay. So, but if you go to Microsoft Office 365, this is something that students at our college and at many colleges have access to. And you go to resources right here, resources. So office.microsoft.com, resources. You'll look for templates. And the very first category that's available is resumes and cover letters. So again, that's office.microsoft.com. You'll look at resources at the top and then click on templates. And the first set of options you have, that's going to show you resumes and cover letters. I've had students who had a lot of success with these designs. I had a student recently who used this design, for example. I advise not utilizing resumes that have pictures. In the United States and other countries, those are in some cases considered more acceptable. But typically here in the US, we don't want to get into any type of discrimination based on a person's appearance. And so we don't want to see photos of the person in the resume. I've had students who had a lot of success with this layout as well. I'll show you that in a minute. Many of these are free. A few of these do cost extra, but many of them are free. So I'll scroll down a little bit further. These are the first ones that are being showcased, but you can hit show all, and it will show a more massive list of options. Okay. And again, these are layouts that are typically free for the taking. I'm just going to pick on this one. It's a very basic one, and I've had students who had success with it. You click on it, and then you can hit download. This will download it to your computer. If you hit customize in Word, it will open Word online. That's fine as well. But sometimes students might have difficulty in using some of the options there, also saving it and having the document saved the way they want it. I've just run into those kinds of quirks occasionally. So I tell students to go ahead and download as a starting point, download it, and then you can start playing with it, save it as you go. But feel free to use either option as you feel comfortable. Okay. So I'm going to stop this screen share. I would hit the download button here. I've already downloaded this one as my example. So I'm going to stop this screen share. Then I'm going to head into another screen share of the actual document that I just downloaded so that I can showcase that for you. Okay. So I went to office.microsoft.com, clicked on resources, then clicked on templates, looked at that massive list of templates, and picked a very simple template to work with. Here's a sample. If you hit enable editing, it would allow you to change the name here. If I want to change it to this, I can. If I want to change it to 123 Maple Street, Spokane, I can. You can see what I'm doing here, okay? One thing to note, and one thing I tell students, for example, I commonly go by Jenny. You'll see that in the name tag on Zoom, but my legal name is actually Jennifer. So for human resources purposes, like if I'm applying for a job, people are doing background checks on me, things like that, I use the name Jennifer just to make sure that it's clear who I am and that there's no discrepancies there. Once people get to know me, I go by Jenny. So I tell students, if you have a nickname or if you go by initials, like if you go by AJ, Wilson or something like that, but your true name is like Anthony John or something like that, go ahead and put Anthony Wilson on there if that makes sense, versus AJ. just makes it easy for people in human resources to identify who you are. You're going to have to show proof of who you are anyway once you land the job, but also background checking that it ensures that there's no problems with that. Okay. Objective statements are optional. They are helpful though. And an objective is basically a statement of intent. It's a statement of goals. What is it that you want for yourself career wise? And why are you applying for this position? In my class, we are going to write cover letters that are more in depth about those things. And so an objective statement is not required. They can be helpful. So if you have an objective option, I don't grade it per se as part of like the grading process for my classes, but I'm still happy to help students with designing a nice objective statement. If you are a college student and you've chosen a certain profession that you're pursuing, you want to make sure that you word that in there somewhere, like I'm a current student in the welding program at SCC, or I'm a recent graduate from the welding program at SCC, seeking a position in this where I can showcase my skills in this and gain more experience in that. That's kind of what we want to go with there, and I can create a separate video for that. Many resume templates will have an experience section and that's where you would showcase ideally job experiences, but if you are fairly new to the employment realm and you don't have a lot of job experiences, you could also showcase volunteer experiences, perhaps. I've even had students showcase their school experiences in the experience section. I tell students that you want to actually change these. So you got education here and experience here. I tell students, if you're currently a college student and you are focusing on a new degree that's going to lead you into a new career, lead with your education. And that may go for all job seekers as well. You don't want it to be overlooked. In many cases, having some type of, especially if it's a profession that requires a license of some sort or a certification, any of your certifications that are going to be relevant to that profession, such as like an OSHA 10, or such as, I know HVAC students, for example, have to get some licenses within their state. Cosmetology students need to have a license within their state in order to be able to practice. So you want to have your degree at the college, but also any required licensing or certificates like right towards the top of the document versus further down. And that just ensures that it's immediately seen by whoever is looking at it. Because oftentimes it's not the head manager or the CEO of the company that's looking at the resumes, it's a recruiter. And you want to make sure that if that person looks at your document for only 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, there's no way possible they're going to miss your licensing and credentials and your education. So at any rate, I recommend that education needs to be near the top. And then after that, you can put your experiences. This template, for example, has communication and leadership skills. I don't think that's relevant for most students, and many professions. You don't necessarily need to have communication listed as a separate category, right? So you could just change that to key skills if you wanted to, right? You wouldn't have to have necessarily an entire section that's related to, and I'm just deleting all of that. We don't really need that extra section. So I've just got key skills, and then we could go from there to references, if that makes sense. So these are editable, and that's what I'm showcasing for you here. You could take the layout that they've given you, but you are not locked into those categories. You can make the categories your own. I recommend the categories I'm showcasing here: education, experience, key skills, and then references. References are super important. I'll talk about that in a separate video. But for my classes, I require that you have at least 2 references. And we want to have more than this, actually. So this template showcases only a person's name, a business, and then the contact info. But I have no idea what her title is here. Or what connection she might have to the person who's applying, to the applicant. So what I would advise if you're going to update your references here is to have the person's name, comma, and then the title: assistant manager or associate, customer sales associate, whatever her title is. Then have the full address, but also, or actually, excuse me, this is the company name, the company name, and then not only her contact information, but the actual address for the company. So that, again, if I'm doing a background check, I could find Olson Harris Limited. I have no idea what that company is, but if I'm a background checker, I can look it up and match it to what the candidate has offered. I'm not going to have a hard time, if this is a small business, finding them. Okay. If she had put Brianna Hernandez, and then she had the position title, as well as Olson Harris Limited, 1234567 Maple Street in Spokane, Washington. It helps me to go to Google Maps and find it. Then I can look for a phone number for that company and ask for this specific associate manager or whoever it is, if that makes sense. Having more information available for the person who's looking at your application is better, much better, because it shows that this is a professional reference, and it also helps me to identify that company, find this person, and then call them very easily to ask for references about your professional skills and your character. So that there's first example. Again, I feel like it's a pretty easy process. I do have students who prefer to just create their own document, which is totally fine. I'm going to go back to the screen share for Microsoft. Again, you could download any of these and have a lot of success. For example, if I wanted to download this one and then open it up, this one has a different layout, but you could manage it, adapt it to whatever your needs are. So I just hit the download button there. I'm hoping that this will go pop up on my screen share. If it doesn't, I'm going to stop the first share and then reshare the screen to make sure that this is there. Again, I just hit download. This is one that has a description of what you're about, as well as the contact information. Education is right here near the top, which is what I personally recommend. Key skills are also very visible. Experience section now, where you would describe and make sure that you go in what we call reverse chronological order with your experiences. Start with your most current relevant job experiences and work your way backwards. So you wouldn't have a job from like 2010 listed first and then a job from 2015. It would be the opposite of that. You would go with whatever's most current, 2023, and then you'd work backwards to a job you had in 2015 or whatever. I also tell students to think about functionality. You don't necessarily have to showcase every single job you've had in a resume. Showcase the jobs that you've had that you feel like were good experiences and that were relevant. You can save all of the other like minor part-time jobs or jobs that weren't so great or that were shorter term. You can save those for the actual online job application at the company's website. You can list all of those jobs that you've had on the company website, but utilize your resume as an opportunity to showcase job experiences that you really want them to pay attention to. And yes, they may ask you on an interview, like, what was the gap here or there or whatever. But again, the resume itself is still an opportunity just to showcase. This one does not have a references section. So what I would advise in this case is that you take this document and add a separate page to it, a separate references page. And so that's totally considered acceptable. You have all of your experiences, your education, your skills showcased on page one, and you have an attached separate sheet of references. And you might be able to design that right here in this document. If it doesn't let you, you might need to create a blank Word document that goes with it, and use the same font style. So like this is the font style, Montserrat. Use the same font style and create a references page that you would attach along with it so the employer has access to both. Okay. So that's it. Feel free to ask me any questions that you have, reach out. I am going to post this on YouTube so that it's more available and accessible, whether or not a student has access to Canvas. I wish you the best as you're designing your resume. If you are building on one that you've already created, I'm hoping that there were a couple of helpful tips in there for you. Have a good day.